This is the weekly rune for the week of April 20th. We are in Mannaz until April 29th. And our time with Mannaz thus far has been characterized by a need to bring some aspect of ourselves that feels new or is new or whatever feels like the iteration of yourself, of your life, of your calling that you've focused on most. I would say over the last year. It could be longer, it could be shorter. But the emphasis of Mannaz is that we bring who we most deeply are out to our people. And it has this little caveat of most likely the people that we're commonly among won't be able to hear or see what we're bringing forward about ourselves, which is unpleasant. And yet, there's a component of Mannaz that is bringing whatever this new experience of being is to others who can hear and see it and validate it. It's not just, performative, here I am, here's who I am, and they go, oh yes, it's you, but truly actually become part of community that holds that space for you to continue along whatever that experience of yourself needs or however it evolves. The best way that we can Mannaz this week is Dagaz, which is curious because we are so quickly coming upon that rune over the next 2 months. It is absolutely blowing my mind that we are 2 months from summer solstice. And that is a New Year expression in this version of a runic calendar. And it's enormous. It's just an enormous felt thing. We'll get to that. But Dagaz is the rune of summer solstice, of June solstice, wherever you are in the world. Dagaz is the rune that means day, as in a full 24-hour rotation. And our experience of Dagaz is usually reflected somewhat in our experience of Yera. They are completely opposite each other on the calendar. So with Yera, we have harvest. We have this experience of revisiting the entire year and bringing what we yield from it into our lives to be used, to be organized into what is planted for next year, to figure out what we never do again, to figure out what we should absolutely repeat and do more of, and to look at the situation dynamically and just see what the situation itself needs based on everything we know of what has come to pass over the last year or cycles of years. Dagaz is a distillation of that. It is a distillation of that entire process down into one day. And for most of us, that means those few moments that we might have first thing in the morning where we could actually have some sort of introspection, or at the end of the day when we're home from work and the meal has been cleaned up and we're finally sitting down and actually being alone with ourselves or alone with our family for the first time during the day. That's kind of the way Dagaz feels to me, that introspective spot where you have to figure out all of that harvest stuff for one day. And this is purely a Kelleyism. This is not a precedented thing. I look at that as finding meaning. And I think that your mileage may vary, and it should. Like whatever the introspective process is that lets you go through your day, figure out what people you interacted with that uplifted you, what ones you interacted with that didn't, and why that might have been. Are they that way all the time? Was it just today? Like, did they need something from you? Did you need something from them? Like that kind of interaction that draws you into relationship. Like ultimately, that's what I think all of the runes are doing, figuring out how you're in relationship with various components of being. I look at this one through a lens of meaning. I don't think it has to be that, but I think it is apt to say it asks you to explore how you're in relationship with the space around you, with all of the relationships that you engage throughout the course of a day. And what needs to change about that? What needs to stay the same? What do you need more of? What do you need less of? What do you need never again in your life? That's kind of the drill of questioning that Dagaz brings up for me. So when we talk about Dagaz in relationship with Mannaz, we're talking about human relationship on one hand. We're talking about knowing impeccably. I think that's what the rune is talking about. I get squeamish because I'm like, I don't think I know impeccably. But knowing impeccably who to go to about what in your life, like kind of sort of dream team territory. I talk about this all the time in every class I teach. I think every book I've written. Who do you go to for what needs, and go to them, like have their information ready, have it laid out so that in an altered space where you're distressed or in need in a particular way or sick, that you know exactly how to get in touch with whoever you need for whatever the category is of your dream team list. I feel like that is a component of what Dagaz is asking us to do, to take this introspection into our relationships, take this introspection into what we're bringing forward that needs to be held in a container of relationship at this point. The other aspect of Mannaz is it relates to the mindful level. And people often say mental. I don't think mental and mindful are the same thing. Yes, I get that they're cousins or whatever. Mental for me starts playing into neurology and physical processes, which mindfulness does also. I feel like when we're talking about mindfulness, we're aiming our awareness at how we're in relationship with self and everything around us. When we aim it at the mental level, we're looking at everything around us and how we're in relationship with it. Slightly different, but also kind of significant. I would love to hear how that works for you. Mindfulness. If we're looking at how we are mindful with Mannaz, if we're looking at how we hold our antenna, how we compose ourselves to move through the world, we're kind of sort of talking about regulation, which I think is important, but I feel like it gets talked about the wrong way. And I've mentioned this several times, and it's always, I think, worthy of mentioning. We can't regulate against everything. Like, it's put forward that if you're traumatized, if you're distressed, if you're feeling tension or chronically depressed, or, go for a walk in the woods, do some yoga, just regulate your energy hygiene. That's not all it is. That's not all it takes, and that's not all it is. And I don't think that Mannaz suggests that. I think that that's a modern thing that we throw on it. Because first of all, if we were functioning in a Mannaz time, we would all be helping each other do that. It would not be something that we're doing by ourselves. And I talk about this in depth in my last book, From Elder to Ancestor. We're not by ourselves, but we don't understand that we're in relationship with place to help us be active in how we carry ourselves through the day, hence the whole relationship thing. But this experience of Mannaz as mindfulness and the experience of Dagaz as how we bring ourselves back to that, I think is suggesting we explore mindfulness techniques. And I emphasize heavily exploring. There is a projection that meditation is monolithic, that it means this one thing, it looks this one way, and that whole sit still and, be the chair has never worked for me. And I think for most neurodivergent people, it takes a lot more exploration to figure out what works to get you in a space that's mindful, and most definitely in a space that is introspective in a way that is helpful. It can be pretty easy to be introspective. Whether it's helpful is the whole question. And that's what I feel like the equation of these runes is asking us to do, to up our game in how we experience being in relationship in the course of a day. What in the course of a day is helping us further our calling? Period. Bottom line. Does not have to be leaps and bounds. We're not talking miles. We're talking potentially inches, maybe feet. Maybe it's tons of miles. It varies depending on who we are, how we're rolling, how we're positioned in this culture. So, how do you further your calling? What in this day happened that furthered my calling? What in this day happened that made me feel more distant from the gift that I bring the planet? I think that's the dialing in that Dagaz is asking us to do with the Mannaz at this time. The direction that we're working with in this runecast is south. For me, south is back or behind. It is literally that direction that I'm pointing in. And so behind for me indicates literally the past. It includes ancestral relationships, and it includes the fact that I am in and was born, raised, and to some degree still choose to be in the South of the United States. So for me, there's a component of fire and heat in the South. There's a lot of humidity. And those things for me represent janitors. They represent the death walkers in my cosmology. They are the things that they're literally the worms and the bacteria and the underspaces that absorb nutrients from what's no longer needed in this Midgard level. Like that's how I experience the South. And South is contemplative for me. It is a space where my job is to let go so that that next circle of life that is the janitors can take it over and compost it into something useful. So I feel like there's an aspect of surrender in the South that I don't necessarily experience in my relationality with the other directions. The element that we're working with in this runecast is different. As soon as I asked what element wanted to be present in the runecast, I immediately was told electricity. And I'm like, well, is that fire or metal? And they were like, yes. So instead of like trying to figure out how I was going to represent that in the whole elemental visual thing, I just went with a cable. And I feel like that's pretty appropriate because there's this component of cabling. Like I kept seeing an adapter and like a plug and all that jazz. There's connectivity in how we experience electricity. So when we talk about fire, we're usually talking about the experience of like deep transformation, of being able to like smelt things into tools or weapons, or being able to reduce mass to ash, and these extremes of absolute decimation and life-giving warmth, like that whole spectrum. And I usually talk about fire as a death walker. Its capability of pretty quickly transmuting what's no longer needed through flame it can be a little intimidating. So when it came to me this way, it was like along the lines of dissemination, connectivity, dissemination, webbing, to be able to take a source of something and channel it out in multiple different directions simultaneously. And I had the clear feeling that's what's needed at this time. I like very specifically on the planet, our networking I think seen and unseen, needs to be dialed up significantly right now. So that's new. I would love to hear your thoughts about what electricity means to you in that capacity. And it definitely was tapping into, like, that's how we're doing this. Like, that's how I'm recording this and distributing this runecast to you. And it's how you're receiving it. And it's part of how you're processing it. I'll have to sit with this for a little bit. This is a new presentation in the runecast. The season that we're working with, I have not determined yet. Let's see. Is autumn. Autumn is the time of year that we're doing harvest, right? We're at the point of the first, second, and third harvests, and we're making those decisions around what we're doing with what we gain. And it's also the point that we are retreating. Like, there's huge celebration in autumn, that point of season change. And there's usually huge celebration, not just to celebrate the harvest itself, but because we know we're going to be like holed up for a long time. We're going to be retracted in our outgoingness. We're going to be shut up more with people that we hope we like and get along with. And even if we do like them and get along pretty well with them, the winter can make that a totally different experience sometimes. All of these are facets of how autumn comes together for us. So it's a preparatory time. Like, it's literally both an ending and a beginning. It's the point that we're experiencing the harvest, which is a certain closure of the year all its own. And it's also the place where the new year hasn't begun, but we're laying the plans for it. We're mapping out what needs to happen. There's also a component of autumn that is foreseeing need. The ability to look ahead. So, like, yes, we're doing the harvest thing and we're putting up, we're canning, freezing, whatever, what we're going to need to have in the winter. But there's a component of an unseen similar gesture that is like figuring out what we're going to need to get through this dark time. And that's the dawning of the dark time. Or at least where I live, it's about the time that you actually start to notice the days are getting really short. So perhaps there's not an acute sense of urgency in the manner of the house is on fire, but there is a sense of urgency, again, kind of coming from Dagaz as well, and from this experience of electricity. There's an urgency that we start to cull out these relationships. We start to understand who we are and bring that to the world in the most honest and safe way that we can, because that is who is most needed on the planet right now. The Galder that we're working with this week includes Mannaz, Man, Mana, and Dagaz. Daga. The way this Galder comes together for me is Mana daga, mana daga, mana daga, mana daga, mana daga, mana daga. There's something about this particular Galder that is very robotic, in a sense of sometimes it really is put one foot in front of the other. Like, we talk about, being ready to bring your true self, your full self to what you're doing right now. And that feels daunting. It feels daunting, especially right now. And it can be as simple as one foot in front of the other. That's where it starts. You don't have to worry about where it's going to go. You don't have to worry about who's going to think or do what for now. For now. One foot in front of the other. I feel like it's really interesting that these runes are both from the third et. And what stands out about that is the third et is when the illusion is stripped from being here, from being a soul in form. But by the time we come through the first et, we've seen how sweet it is and how affirming being here can be. But in the second et, we start to interact with other people. We've figured out how to apply our agency, and we want to. That's what we want to do. And we've understood that with certain components of formed being and spiritual being fused on our behalf, we can really shape the impact of our agency and the places where we cannot. And we have to deal with that. And we've also figured out the intersectionality of dealing with other people's impact from their agency, or how they are impacted by our agency. The second et is the gorgeous mess part of being soul in form. And the third et, as I've seen, is like the abrupt realization that this is it. This really is how it works over and over. And we hope that each time we cycle back to that second et, we've gained more skills in the sweetness part of being here, and that shades our agency and impact more. And I feel like that's kind of where the pressure is on in the third et this time. And the fact that both of these runes are from the third et, it feels a little bit pressured for us to get it in gear. Make the choices, do the things you have to do, make it happen. I would love to hear your thoughts about the runes for this week, about the beingness of this week, and thank you for all that you do.